All right, for this one we have quadratic functions and models. So here, for this first one, we want to graph this function of f of x equals x squared plus 4x plus 3. So we can go through the steps like the book shows in terms of graphing this. So if we were to do that, first of all, we would want to decide if it is going upward or downward. So in this case, if we look in front of that x squared term, it is positive. So that means it is going upward. So it's going to be a U shape. For the next step here, it's going through and trying to identify what the vertex is. So to get the x coordinate of that, we can do negative b over 2a. So just a reminder that a is the number in front of that x squared, which in this case is a 1, and the b is the number in front of your x term, which is a 4 in this case. So here we would have a negative 4 over 2 times 1. So then we'd have a negative 4 over 2, which simplifies down to a negative 2 there. So that would be the x coordinate. To get the y coordinate, we can plug in our f of negative 2, plug in x equals 2 into the formula. So then we'd have negative 2, make sure to put parentheses around it whenever you're squaring it there, plus 4 times negative 2 plus 3. So here we'd get a positive 4 since that entire negative 2 is being squared, minus 8 from doing the 4 times negative 2 plus 3. So here in this case we should end up with a total of negative 1 there for the y value. So for our vertex, the x component here is negative 2 and the y component is negative 1. Next thing is to determine what our x and our y-intercepts are. So we'll do the y-intercept first. So that's a little bit quicker. So for the y-intercept, you just plug in 0 for x. So in this case, we'd be doing f of 0 in terms of our function notation. So if we do that, we have 0 squared plus our 4 times 0 plus 3. So our y-intercept here would be at 3. Or in terms of a coordinate, that would be 0, comma 3. Since the x-coordinate was 0, the y-coordinate is 3. And then we can figure out our x-intercepts here. So to figure out our x-intercepts, which we'll abbreviate once again as int for intercept, we have to plug in 0 for y instead, or 0 for that f of x function. So then we'd have our x squared plus 4x plus 3. And then to solve something like this, you need a factor, kind of like we had to do whenever we were doing our completing the square before. So here in this case, right off to the side, what you'd be looking for, you're looking for two numbers that will multiply together to give you the 3, that constant, and those same two numbers have to add together to give you the 4, the middle term, your b term. So in this case, we'd have 1 and 3 would work for both of those cases. So here for our factoring, we would have an x plus 1, and for the other one, we would have an x plus 3, since both values were positive in this case. And it's still set equal to 0. So then to finish solving for our x values for our x-intercepts, we set each of those equal to 0. So we'd have 0 equals the x plus 1 So here we get x equals -1 by subtracting the 1 on both sides of the equation. Similarly, we'd have the 0 equals x plus 3, and subtract 3 from both sides of the equation. So our other x-intercept is going to be at x equals -3. So those are our x-intercepts. And then the final step is to go through and graph. This is labeled as step 5 there. So here we'd want to sketch our vertex first, which was at -2, -1. So you go left 2 and then down 1, plot that point. And then you also want to plot the x-intercepts, which were at -1 for the x and -3 for x. So remember, x is always this horizontal, y is the vertical line. And then we can connect those to make our curve. Remember, it should look kind of like a U. Might not look perfectly like one because we're doing it by hand. But it should be that U-shaped, and it should be going upward, like we said in step 1 there. So that's in terms of graphing that. The next one is a little bit quicker. All we're doing is comparing these two graphs. So I'll do the original one, the x² graph, we'll do in black here. So the original x² graph, you can also see this in the book, looks something like this. To get the exact values, so you can certainly plug in different values for x to get the y coordinates. And then here, whenever we're dealing with this other one, we'll do this second one here in red. So here we have x² minus 3. So for this one, you would have to go down 3. But otherwise, the graph is going to look the same sort of thing. Only it is going to be starting down at -3 this time instead of at 0, 0. So I'd have something like this. So here, because this -3 is at the end and not with the x, this means it is shifted down 3. Try and write that a little bit better here for us. Shift it down. So we'll use the arrow for down, 3. If this -3 was in with the x, then it would have actually been shifted to the right 3 instead. So make sure you are careful whenever you're trying to figure out how those graphs compare to each other, whether they're shifted left, right, it might be up, down, could be a combination of both. It could be even flipped upside down if it is a negative in front of those x's. So it does make a difference of those signs, so pay careful attention of that. And if you have questions, make sure to ask like normal.